Here. Mrs. Glatt.
Here.
Mrs. Moses.
Here.
Mr. Pat.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, again, welcome. This is the first opportunity for public comment in accordance with Board Policy 0169. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school board's business, the district's business, and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during this meeting. Each person addressing the board will give his or her name and address, and there will be allotted 3 minutes until the total time of 30 minutes is used. During that period, no person may speak twice until all who desire to speak have had an opportunity to do so. Individuals desiring more time should allow the procedure of the board to be placed on a regular agenda. The period of public participation may be extended by a vote majority of the board. In order for the board to fulfill its obligation to complete the planned agenda in an effective and efficient fashion, a maximum of 30 minutes of public participation will be permitted at each meeting. Board members do receive and review the agenda and the accompanying explanation during the week prior to the Monday board meeting. If you have a public comment, please step to the microphone and state your name and address, please.
Catherine Catino, 33145 Rockford Drive. Members of the board, on June 7th, PTA parents spoke out defending their DEI lessons as a way of attempting to bring students together and making all students feel safe and welcomed. It all sounded very positive. As someone who has been in the HR space teaching diversity and inclusion for years, and as someone who is Puerto Rican and Jewish, I applaud these efforts. My concern, however, is that the lessons taught do not accomplish what they said it would. One parent stated that their intention of the lessons was to provide a safe space for positive discussion, then talked about making it uncomfortable for students when talking about diversity. So I'm confused. What is it that we are trying to do? Make school a place where people feel safe to talk and learn about differences, or a place where they are forced to feel uncomfortable? Also, there was a great lesson on boxes and labels talking about how we shouldn't label people. Yet in September, the students were given a glossary of terms with definitions of labels such as assimilationist. So are we saying it's okay to use those labels, but we shouldn't label people in general? The lessons taught are also not about learning other cultures, how to treat others with respect, or developing mentoring programs that you typically find with DEI. The students were shown a video about Jamal, a young black boy who will have a harder time getting ahead in life, and violence against minorities. Learning repercussions of racism is important, but where are the lessons that help foster a culture of respect and inclusion? Lastly, how are we making this a safe space for all students when a specific group of students appears to be targeted? A best practice in DEI lessons is to include the perspectives of all identities so as not to make the majority group experience a sense of threat. This can negatively impact a child's psyche. Keep in mind, most of these students are between the ages of 14 and 17. Slide 5 of the presentation reads, "What is racism? The marginalization and or oppression of people of color based on a socially constructed racial hierarchy that privileges white people." From the definitions handed out, white fragility, a state in which even a minimum amount of racial stress becomes intolerable for white people, triggering a range of defensive moves, which in turn function to reinstate white racial equilibrium. Denial, those who are in a state of denial tend to believe, quote, "People are people. We are all alike regardless of the color of our skin." White privilege, the unearned power and advantages that benefit people just by virtue of being white or perceived as white. If we argue racism is about those who are in power and teach us fact that white children have unearned power by virtue of being white, what message are we sending? And are we teaching them to categorize themselves? Help me to understand how these lessons teach about respect for diversity and help all students feel included. When these definitions specifically call out one group, teach students to view someone as having white privilege, label people as deniers that have white fragility rather than learning to have meaningful conversations. One of my biggest concerns is that we are sending completely contradictory messages to children on such an important topic. I think we should ask ourselves, is this honestly what we want taught to our kids? Thank you.
My name is Ashley Bevers. I live at 6803 Glen Allen Avenue in Solon. Good morning and thank you. My child is the recipient of the Female Comment of the Year Award. She also received the Principal's Award in 8th grade. She has a GPA of 4.5 and is a solid student. These statements were said by my child this year. Why do I feel guilty for being white? It is not something that I can control. They are only showing white people being violent when discussing racism. I feel like the school is teaching that only one race is to be blamed for racist ideologies, isn't targeting white people discriminatory by their very definitions. As a parent, I must ask what the school's agenda is when I read the letter from Aaron Short about how to know my history of white privilege and white supremacy in June 11, 2020 letter to parents. Or when I read the definitions of the anti-racism terms, which has an underlying bias towards persons of Caucasian descent that were given to students for these trainings. We have seen a shift in core values through this process in our child. She has stated that she feels like she must be a chameleon in the classroom, but also at home. She has different views on sexual orientation and gender identity in our home, creating deep tension in our family. Solon School has cultivated an environment that creates separation between family and school, even though the website states that Solon School believes in the partnership of school and family. These are other statements that my child said this year. The most interesting thing I learned today is that 6 people sitting around me are gay. A student who identifies as male but is biologically female and is in a relationship with a female, it is considered a heterosexual relationship and it's accepted in the school. There are many labels within the school regarding the LGBTQ+ and gender identities, including cisgender, non-binary, asexual, aromantic, etc., even though the school did a training on how to disable the label. When I asked my child how she would feel if her 10-year-old sibling said that they identified as a different gender, her response was, "You do you, boo," and was accepting of this scenario. As a parent, I must ask, what is happening to the school that we trusted? You have created an environment that promotes sex confusion and racism. Solon High has created a false sense of hope that children can go to the school instead of their families. You have allowed this false security and promoted school acceptance before family acceptance. What is the school going to do to fix this? When you chose to not give parents the information of the trainings until after the training happened, you stopped supporting the family dynamic. When I am told that the school is seeking organic conversation, meaning no influence of parents or family, you stop supporting the family dynamic. In seeking answers, I personally have requested information under the Freedom of Information Act and have been formally denied because it was a student survey given by a student journalist. I'm requesting that you address the issue of cultivating a sexual environment and a racist environment. Diversity, equity, and inclusion should include our minors' custodial and parental viewpoints. Our taxes pay the salaries of the faculty, including Aaron Short, and if this is not fixed, I can assure you that Solon Schools will not be involved in the education of our children. Thank you.
My name is Jenny Seaman. I live at 6553 Edgemore. I am here today as a parent of 3 students in Solon Schools to ask the administration and the board for the transparency parents deserve and have the right to. I've been asking for over 6 months for the curriculum being taught by the PTA DEI committee, along with the survey information given to our students, and I was repeatedly told it would not be sent to parents. It wasn't until the end of the school year that the presentations were put on the school website and the survey information was finally released. I was told by administration the presentations were not being sent to parents ahead of time because they did not want the parents' influence on the students' discussions. The administration still refuses for this upcoming school year to send the parents the presentations before the lessons are given in school, despite requests from parents. This is a violation of our parental rights to see the curriculum our students are being taught. I urge all parents to review the presentations on the website. Parents should know that when the school gives you the option to opt out your student of a survey, it's because they are asking questions they legally aren't supposed to. I don't believe further dividing our students should be the goal, but that is what these lessons are doing. We should never assume anything about anyone based solely on their skin color. The recent survey results reported that some students were taught in school that all white people are racist, and these lessons are filled with bias. My son, who was born with disabilities and facial differences, was not okay with the lessons on these topics. As his parents, we work together with his teachers to make sure they are aware of his needs and the best way to teach him. Every student is different and has their own situations people don't know about. Having a small group of administrators and PTA parents who are not experts on all these topics create curriculum is not in the best interest of our students and ended up taking away the safe space my son had created for himself at the school. He was singled out yet again when he hadn't felt that way in a very long time. The school already has student clubs such as the Diversity Acceptance Club, CEC, GSA, and SAD. Why doesn't the school give these groups the support and platform to reach out to students as they see fit? You already have health classes and programs that address body image, eating disorders, disabilities, suicide prevention, and bullying, to name a few. This school has policies pertaining to discrimination and bullying. Why aren't they being upheld? Students and parents are afraid to speak up because of the one-sided communication and culture that's been created. The board has been ignoring feedback from parents and pushing everything back on the administration. Please know, as a parent, I hold the board equally responsible. The email sent to high school parents on June 11, 2020 was inappropriate. It is not the school or principal's job to tell us how to parent. The board and district have also failed to deal with code of conduct violations by high school administration. You failed to ensure the gifted program was state approved the last 2 years. These issues are unacceptable. The board and administration need to abide by the laws in place to ensure parents receive the curriculum they request. The lack of transparency and cooperation on these issues should be alarming to every parent in the district. Solon has many amazing teachers who work very hard every day for every student, and it's a shame this curriculum is being used to divide students, teachers, and families against one another.
Good morning. My name is Michael Drazynski, 5780 Janet Boulevard. I don't think this one is working at all.
The microphone is for the audio of the recording.
Awesome. Okay. Member of the board and fellow Solonites, I've been Solon resident for almost 19 years, and I have 3 daughters. One is Solon High School alumni, another one is a junior there, and the youngest attends Orchard Middle School. A little bit of history. I came to the U.S. from a former Soviet Union in 1991 as a Jewish refugee. Many Americans fought tirelessly to make it possible for people like me to be able to leave behind a country with institutional anti-Semitism and get to the USA, a country of freedom and equal opportunities. I have to say, in the Soviet Union, we were raised on propaganda of posters, slogans, and movies that taught us to be internationalists and respect people of all colors and nationalities. In reality, however, Jews were second-class citizens subjected to constant bullying from fellow countrymen, quotas to enter colleges, and limits of getting any important position in the workplace. So when I and my wife made it to land of the free, we were overwhelmed with the reality of true internationalism, especially when we moved to Solon. Every time we would go to one of our daughter's school concerts, our eyes would be watering in disbelief. Then we saw kids of all races and many nationalities singing Hanukkah songs, the songs that we growing up in the Soviet Union were not even allowed to know. Over the years, my daughters were friends with the kids from many racial and national backgrounds and religious beliefs. And at some point, we started taking it for granted that in our country, the country of the melting pot, all kinds of people can be friends with anyone who you like as a person, until now. Now, if DEI is currently taught in schools, will continue. My daughters, the great-grandchildren of people who barely escape pogroms, but who happen to have blue eyes and very fair skin, will be looked as at a privileged offspring of oppressors. So, I plead with you, please do not fix what is not broken. Solon High School system has been one that I bragged for 19 years. Solon School has Music in Motion, the most inclusive entity that you can imagine that helps our kids to create and become better no matter what they look like. Do not train our kids in a diversity and inclusion. Teach them one thing: don't treat another person as you don't want to be treated. They will figure out the rest. Thank you.
My name is Brookezelwin, and I live on Gaelic Glen. I am here to express my support for diversity, equality, and inclusion programming in Solon schools, specifically when it comes to American history and racial discrimination. A year ago, I did not know what DEI programming was. I did, however, know that a black man had recently been murdered when a policeman placed his knee on his neck for over 8 minutes. I knew that violence against black people at the hands of authorities is a problem. I knew that where I grew up, in Bainbridge, there was a small population of black students who attended my school, and most of them lived in a poor part of town that were lacking in resources that would have helped them succeed. What I did not know was why these things were happening and how they came about, so I began to read. In the past year, I have read Stamped from the Beginning, The Warmth of Other Suns, If Beale Street Could Talk, and The Nickel Boys, among others. These were not the first books I ever read about racism, injustice, and the history of black people in the United States, but they were among the most eye-opening and informative. I came away from these books feeling overwhelmed and empowered. Overwhelmed because there is so much work to be done to make the United States the more perfect union that our forefathers wanted it to be. Empowered because knowing about the ways that those forefathers sought to keep people from gaining power and having equal rights made me feel more equipped to advocate for better systems, better policies, and better legislation. Did I ever feel ashamed of my whiteness or scared about losing the privilege it brings? No. Perhaps because I am smart enough to know that helping other people will not hurt white people. In fact, it has been shown that in communities where black people and white people have the most equality, everyone benefits socially and economically. What did make me upset was the ways in which the American history lessons of my childhood were lacking. I was taught growing up that the South had slaves, but Lincoln freed them. Then there was Reconstruction, and black people got the right to vote. Things still were not great, and there were separate drinking fountains until Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream and the civil rights movement ended segregation. And we all lived happily ever after in a post-racial society where anyone who is not colorblind is racist. This is what happens when one group of people write the history lessons. I believe that some politicians are calling this traditional American history. It lacks the horrors of slavery. It leaves out the ways in which Southern lawmakers responded to Reconstruction by restricting voting rights with grandfather clauses and literacy tests, and when that didn't work, lynching. There is no mention of the Tulsa Massacre, nor does it cover redlining in the 20th century and the effect it had on black people not being able to own property, thus denying them the #1 way to accrue generational wealth. There is no history lesson about the prison industrial system and how it disproportionately locks up people of color, further trapping them in a cycle of poverty and crime. Through my own investigation, I was able to learn about the contemporary landscape of inequality and understand how it came about. I was even able to educate myself about the history of the black neighborhood in my hometown and how redlining resulted in creating a separate but horribly unequal community for them. At the time, I did not label what I was reading as critical race theory, and it did not turn me into a communist. It did, however, make me want to educate my own children about the history of the United States, not so they would hate their country, but so that they would love their fellow citizens. My goal...
About finished?
Yeah, I'll finish
3
this
minutes is up.
sentence. Yeah. My goal is not to have them say that they do not see color, but to have them understand what a person's color represents, how it explains their culture, their history, and the things they may struggle with or succeed in because of those factors, which is why it is important that we give our students the truth about their history. There needs to be racial literacy, enabling our teachers to educate and inform their students.
We have to finish.
Okay, who can grow up to be adults
Please.
that strive to create a just society.
Thank you.
My name is Ava Shaker. I live at 5245 Hemington Boulevard, Solon. All right. Good morning, board members and administration. Solon schools are well known for having a diverse student body, which is why it is so important to teach our students to respect each other no matter how they appear or choose to appear. School is a place for learning and asking questions. A great step towards better inclusion and support is helping kids to have those conversations and be educated in a safe learning environment. No one likes to feel different. Feeling isolated from classmates can be a huge distraction. I feel awkward if I'm wearing an ugly outfit or if my hair's wet after swim practice, so I can only imagine feeling constantly judged about my race, skin, sex, etc. This is why it's so important to teach and normalize confidence in being our true selves. High school is a developmental time for personal exploration, so understanding and being courteous of our classmates' choices or beliefs is key to fostering that growth. I strongly feel the diversity, equity, and inclusion lessons are a great way to support our students, and I applaud the Solon Board of Education for standing behind these values. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Bridget Caver, and I live at 7650 Psalm Center Road. And I'm the proud parent of a 2018 Solon High School graduate and a 2021 recent Solon High School graduate. Before I say my remarks, I just wanted to say that my heart is breaking right now listening to some of the things that are being said today. And I really want to open dialogue with some of you because I think information is power, and there's so much misinformation that's being shared in this community, and it's really breaking my heart right now. So I just had to say that. I'm not a history scholar, and I don't claim to be well-versed in academia and curriculum development. I am a faith-filled believer, wife, mother, sister, and friend who endeavors to respect every person. I also grew up in a neighborhood, in a neighboring community at a time when we were the first Black communities to move there. We were not welcome there. The residents egged our home, and they put bombs in our mailbox to scare us away. But we stayed for many years. When I got to elementary school, we had a teacher who sponsored a soul food lunch. She wanted the school to celebrate Black history, and it was awesome. I felt pride hearing about the accomplishments of people who look like me. Fast forward to a few years ago when we moved our family to Solon. Unfortunately, my children have experienced racism in a different form, on the playing field, at practice, and in their friend circles. They were not made to feel welcome there. When will it stop? To the D&I curriculum detractors and those who want to keep the truth about this country's history and its impact on our students out of the classroom, I ask you why. Why are you afraid of exposing the truth? You're tired of hearing about inequities, discrimination, and racism? Try living with it. Try raising your child to persevere despite the fact that opposing team members hurled racial insults at him while he was pitching in a regional playoff of a baseball game. Try explaining to your daughter how she should stay on a team even though another team member used racial slurs. When will it stop? Who's responsible for change? All of us are. Every single one of us has a responsibility to combat racism and inequities in all forms. Serving with the parents and staff of Solon High School to develop the D&I curriculum is one of my greatest pleasures. These lessons were developed to address the concerns of the students. The concerns of the students. Is anyone listening to them? What are their needs? I find it interesting that the racism lesson has caused such an uproar. We spent so much time talking about that because it's such a sensitive topic, but we never wanted to shy away from it. We should not shy away from difficult conversations. Education evolves to address the needs of each student. When I was in school, I learned to type on a typewriter. But today, laptops and computers and tablets are in all classrooms all over the world. Including lessons about how to respect each other and examine your own thoughts and behaviors are important as we try to raise responsible adults. I encourage you to keep D&I as part of the curriculum so that we can live in a world where there is truly liberty and justice for all.
One moment, please. They were up next, and then you can go.
How are we doing on timing?
We are 21 minutes. We've done 21 minutes of speaking.
My name is Keisha Chantry. I live at 336.
Just one moment, Ms. Chantry.
Sorry.
We were going to go for the 30, and then we would pause.
My name is Keisha Chantry. I live at 33607 Owley Park Drive in Solon. We moved here 13 years ago for the educational reputation of this school, and I have 2 students in the school district, Karen is going to read my letter for me. Thank you.
I'm reading on behalf of Keisha Chantry. She said, let's see. In 2019, Solon High School students took a national PTA-sponsored school climate survey. As a result, PTA committees created diversity inclusion lessons to be shared with the students monthly. On September 30th of 2020, the first of these lessons was given to the students. After this lesson, parents were notified via an email from Ms. Short, which included, quote, "This is work we all must do together, even if it means stepping outside of our comfort zone from time to time. It is our hope that this will deepen communications between families and our school community so that we can all be agents for change," end quote. While we thought this plea sounded great, we quickly learned that the words were hollow. Prior to the lesson, we realized that important dialogue or meaningful conversations were not possible without knowing what was being taught to our son. In late September of 2020, we requested access to the information that would be presented in the lessons. In January 2021, an email from the principal to all parents included, quote, "We will share these ideas and resources with you in the coming weeks on the PTA Diversity and Inclusion page on the website," end quote. The information that was shared on the website was only a fraction of what was presented to our child during the lessons and was often posted weeks, if not months, after the lesson was given. Because of this, we continued to request lesson details. Our requests were submitted to the principal, her colleagues, and the superintendent. Over the past 9 months, the responses we have received from Ms. Short have included these quotes. "We are not sharing these presentations publicly. Our approach to all of these DEI lessons has been for students to participate in organic and authentic conversations with their peers and then follow up with families at home. We don't want the hard work that we have done to be stolen by other schools. We've had discussions like this in school assemblies prior to COVID, and you haven't seen those presentations," end quotes. How do these responses reflect an open and honest school community? Why does diversity and inclusion have to be a competition with other districts? Why does this need to be a secret? Parents shouldn't have to hope that their child will share with them all the details mentioned in the sensitive discussions that were had during the day. They need to know what will be discussed so that they can decide if their child should participate based off their maturity or family values. I've spoken to several parents that have children that struggle with eating disorders. After the body image lesson, their children were upset and parents did not know why or how to help them. When a few of them confided in me, I told them about the D&I lessons that were given. They wish they would have known about the lesson beforehand so they could better prepare and comfort their children. How many children that lack self-esteem hear these lessons and feel poorly afterwards? As educators, the school does not know every struggle in the students' lives. These D&I lessons could potentially be triggering for some students, and parents would never know, or they would find out when it's too late. Whether you agree or disagree with any of the topics, transparency must be demanded and families must be included. Somehow the school thinks it's okay to take all responsibility away from parents and leave them mostly in the dark. They think family values should come second to the agenda. Recently, a post was created on social media regarding Solon's D&I lessons, which received more than 200 comments. Within a short period of time, the school website suddenly contained most of the D&I materials that had been asked for months. Why did it take social pressure for the Solon School District to do the right thing? Do you see the problem? If the school is saying that this is for the greater good, why is it so hard to find out what is being taught? What is there to hide? And why does the school care more about its public reputation than the parents' requests? We no longer trust the school with our child or what is being taught due to lack of transparency and respect for our role as parents. Our children are being taught that parents are not trustworthy enough to handle difficult conversations. How can we deepen communication between families and our school community if parents are left without any knowledge of these lessons? I'll leave you with this thought. Secrecy breeds suspicion, always, and transparency breeds trust.
Is the 3 minutes up?
Before we, excuse me, sir, we are actually, excuse me for just a moment.
Well, 1 second.
We are right now at our 30 minutes, which is part of the board amount of time. So in order for us to extend that, we would need to have a motion for the board to extend that amount of time. Do we want to conduct, and it's the board's choice obviously, do we want to conduct the regular business meeting and then for our second round of public comment vote to extend that? Or do we want to extend the time now and then move on after?
That's fine with me.
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
I think
I think it would be easier to,
extended, though.
It needs to be extended, absolutely, and
So we'll
I
need a-
think that it would be easier for everyone here if we did it now rather than
Yeah.
later.
Okay, so I need a.
Not that
a
everyone.
motion.
I motion we extend
Second.
the period for 15 minutes.
Second?
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Ms. Gladden?
Yes.
Excuse me, the lady in the jacket was actually oh, you're gonna, I believe the lady in the jacket was next, and then the gentleman in the shirt standing up is after that.
We'll have to
Hi,
vote again.
my name is Lauren Caver, and I live at 7650 Psalm Center Road. My mom already spoke today. Her name is Bridget Caver, and I wasn't originally planning on speaking today, but I just felt like I had to. I want everyone to take a look around the room. How many people in this room can you say look like you? Every day when I walked into Solon High School, I just graduated in 2021. How many people could I say that looked like me, students and staff? Out of my whole time at Solon High School, I've only had one black educator. That takes a huge toll on kids like me and any other brown or black child in that school. And that's primarily because teachers of Caucasian or other descent, they don't understand the challenges that we walk through or what may happen to us in school. And I'll share an example. I've been cheering since I was about 9 years old, and I cheered all throughout high school. And I had a very close friend of mine. She lived around the corner from me, and she would pick me up and take me to and from school and from practice. We cheered together. One day, we were riding in the car together, and a song was playing on the radio. Or no, the song was playing from her phone. And she sang the entire song, word for word, including the N-word, the racial slur, in front of me, my friend. That year, we cheered together again, and our team was completely divided. It was black versus white. It was us versus them. Everybody chose a side, and there were only about 5 other African-American cheerleaders, so our team was completely divided. We stood divided during the national anthem, and every picture we took during warm-ups, during games, it was evident that our team was divided. And it only further escalated throughout the season, although we had intervention with Ms. Short and Mr. Frazier. This year, I got the opportunity to serve on the Diversity Inclusion Student Board with a few other of my peers. And after reflecting on my experience with the cheer team, I'm actually grateful that it happened at such a young age. I've learned that no matter the situation, it is extremely important that I stick up for myself and call out racism when it happens. It's not enough for me to just be angry. I owe it to myself and the other person to attempt to call the ignorance to their attention. My experience has revealed to me that although there is still plenty of work to be done, that the staff at Solon High School is committed to addressing and eliminating racism in our community. In addition to creating a PTA Diversity and Inclusion Committee, they have created a Student Advisory Board so that students such as myself are able to share their stories and bring awareness to issues such as racism, discrimination, and ableism. Through a combination of experiencing my own hardships and listening to the stories of others, I can proudly say that I am equipped with the tools I will need if I ever encounter another racially motivated situation. Thank you.
You know what, let me just, I guess, hold it up or something, or put it up here. Okay, I don't know if everybody can see this. Okay, my Did you name want is to just set Michael. it on the easal, sir? No, it's okay, I need to read it, and I won't be able to see it from the easel. I understand. Thank you. It's part of my presentation. Anyway, my name is Michael Dobson. I live at 5701 Spring Grove Drive in Solon. So, I guess I'll start. What kind of people should a public school produce? A school should produce educated graduates who have the ability to think critically on their own. An educated person is skilled based on the knowledge of facts in core subjects like math, languages, history, and science, with additional funds, art, music, and physical education. However, in our publicly funded schools, more and more resources are being allocated towards exposing children to opinions or agenda-driven rhetoric that is not based on facts and truths.
There are plenty of private schools that have a full right to teach agenda-based curriculums, but public schools that use taxpayers' funds should stay away from any subject that is not teaching skills or facts. We as parents are appalled by the untruthful concepts taught to our children. On this board, I printed slides that our children were shown during school. The slides can also be found at solonschools.org/page/4971. Top 2 definitions are provided by reputable dictionaries and are used worldwide. The third definition says that racism can only come from white people. And I quote, "The marginalization and oppression of people of color based on a socially constructed racial rhetoric that privileges white people." It's based on the Anti-Defamation League, which is not a dictionary at all. But for some reason, it is taught as one of the true definitions. And then in other lessons, this is the question that was asked: what is systemic racism? And the correct answer was also provided by Anti-Defamation League, which is a private nonprofit organization. A combination of systems, a combination of systems, institutions, and factors that advantage white people and for people of color cause widespread harm and disadvantages in access and opportunity. These lessons change actual definitions that are not adopted or recognized by any knowledgeable person. It also impacts how a child communicates with everyone around them, and that is not acceptable. When our children graduate from Solon High School, we want them skilled to be able to get into college or find a trade that will provide for their lives. We want our children to be educated with facts, not agenda activism. Teaching impressionable kids about racism, sexual preference, political agenda, social justice beliefs, and other deeply personal topics should be left to the parents and not Board of Education. I strongly believe that this is what parents and teachers want, and it will benefit our children too. In conclusion, I just want to say I grew up with discrimination. You know, it's not nice, but every single parent here has a different opinion, and that opinion should stay at home and should not be taught. If I don't want your opinion to be taught with my money, and you don't want your opinion to be taught with your money, we're in public school. Just do not teach things that have no facts or they're agenda-based. You want to teach it agenda-based? Take them to private schools. Just leave the kids to learn actual basic skills that they need in life and nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jonathan Broadbent. I'm here on behalf of Protect Ohio Children as an invited guest into Solon. I was a fixture of Solon when I bought my first business in Solon in '96 and got involved in the chamber.
Excuse me, could you state where your address?
Your name and address, please.
I'm not a resident of Solon. I'm from outside of Solon representing Protect Ohio Children.
No, that's fine. It's part of our policy that you have to state your name and address.
My address as well.
Yes.
3362 Belvoir, Beechwood, Ohio, 44122.
Thank you.
As about a 7-year fixture of Solon, I got to know the community very well. My wife and I met in Solon, and part of my heart will always be in this community. I was invited back this morning by a great number of parents, students, and teachers of Solon who have communicated with me their concerns about the teaching choices that Solon is now making. I can tell you on behalf of those people, there is great discomfort within your community for the direction that you're taking. I'm going to pause for a moment and interject something of personal value. Often in my life, I have been the white guy, living and working in East Cleveland, my wife as well, teaching in East Cleveland. Having the experience of being the white guy, it breaks my heart when I hear about stories of racism. I am embarrassed for my black brothers and sisters who experience racism in any walk. I'm also deeply wounded by black racism in reverse. I think that we should all treat each other with great respect and be our brothers and sisters' keepers. However, I firmly, absolutely believe that the direction that Solon Schools is headed is the antithesis of solving for race and race-related issues. I can tell you after exhaustive experience and research into critical theory, the origins of it, having testified last week in Columbus against the use of critical race theory on a congressional level, being involved on a national level, I believe that anybody who is hinging their hopes on some sort of racial parity is being misled. I was introduced yesterday to a gentleman by the name of Jason Whitlock. I'd never heard of him before. A black man who has penned the article, "Dear Black America, We Are Being Lied To." I suggest you take a look at it because to me, in all my vast research, it hits the nail on the head. This ultimately, critical race theory, and it's popping up suddenly, March of 2021, across major corporations, major sports franchises, popping up in public schools. I've lost track of the number of conversations I've had with Protect Ohio children. I have spoken to more school boards in your position than I can remember now over the past 4 months. And we have addressed this issue over and over again. I interject and propose the idea that what you're attempting to do is like trying to instruct children how to play well on the playground. It will never work. I think that the only possible answer to address racism, because it does exist, is on a case-by-case basis. If you bring in curriculum into the schools that espouses that your white friend is not to be trusted, that your white friend is inherently racist, and that you now have 5 generations of altered DNA. I've heard that in a school district because of trauma from the past. What you are doing is driving a massive wedge between those black and white kids who might grow up to be friends, colleagues, business owners, in relationships, work together, and lead productive lives. In summation, if we are to assume
This is
that...
3 minutes, so if you could sum up, that'd be great.
In summation, if we were to assume that racism does exist and it is pervasive in Solon, I strongly encourage a look at Bob Woodson, Dr. Carol Sween, or Chloe Valderi. They are resources that unify rather than divide. Thank you.